Make sure you get the veggie fry. That's the on the left side.
I'm introducing our next speaker, Bob DiBenedetto, and I'm going to tell you some wonderful things about this wonderful speaker. Bob DiBenedetto is the co-founder of Healthy Planet and creator of its Healthy School Lunch program. Bob hosts the Healthy Planet radio show and has lectured on the powerful impacts of our food and lifestyle choices for over 20 years. Bob co-chairs the Prevention Committee of the Suffolk County Cancer Awareness Task Force and sits on several business/community energy alliances where he advocates for a bold move away from fossil fuels. He has appeared on national television and radio programs and has been quoted in publications including Newsday and the New York Times. Bob's extension research into personal growth and meditation has led him to spread big picture, whole world solutions. It is my great privilege to present to you Bob DiBenedetto. Ta-da! How you doing? Good. Ready to take over?
I sure am.
Okay. It's great to introduce you.
It was a pleasure to be introduced by you.
Go for it.
What a wonderful thing to be introduced to by Karen Davis. Thank you, Karen. Right. Okay. Yes, I got it. Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And you've heard about everything about who I am, right? All the things I've done over the last 20 some odd years. And when I ask you, who are you? You probably think about all the things you've done over how long of a period of time. So let me ask, real quick, a couple of words. Who are you? Anybody? Who are you? I don't know. Who are you? Who can speak up here? Who are you? I don't want to say.
Jim and Leanie Arrogant.
Okay, Jim and Leanie. There we go. Well, what we tend to do when we think of who we are. Who are you? I don't know. So we tend to think of who we've been in the past, who we've been up until this point that creates this thing that's in front of us right here. And that's, on one level, it's real because that's who we are. It's what's been created. All of our habits, all of our conditioning, all of the things that, for one reason or another, happen to us, create who we are. I got hit in the head with the hammer when I was 3, and so I'm afraid of things like that are on my right side now. You know, it's that kind of thing. Is that really who we are? I think not. I think there's something deeper that really expresses who we are, and that is, I look to the East. What does Eastern wisdom tell us? Well, they bring a very important concept to the fore, and that is that there is no self. Now, does that mean that you're not there and that I'm not here? No. It just simply means that the you that's there and the I that is here is not something that is rigid and unchanging. It is something that has full flexibility to change at any moment. There's no limitation. And deep down, we are all alike. The implications of that are profound, of course. Now let me ask you something. When you're going through life and there's something that you really wanted to change for a long time, but you can't change it, how does it feel? Not so good. It feels kind of like baggage, right? It holds you down. It keeps you from moving ahead. It keeps you from being who you'd like to be. So if we have this baggage and we're carrying it throughout our lives, here's who I am, and there's no change, all of a sudden our world is very limited. There's another way of looking at it, though. If we look and we understand that we have the ability to move in any direction. When I open my eyes, I can act like you, or I can act like you. With the next word I say, I can be like you. As soon as we get that, we then have to ask ourselves, all right, what do I want? Well, I think all of us want pretty much the same thing. We want to be free, we want to be healthy, we want peace, we want kindness in the world. And this applies to everybody, whether you're a vegan or a carnivore. We all want the same thing. But what you really need in order to make a change in this world is you need to understand the implications of the choices that you're currently making. There are some people who have taken on global warming, and they've been heroes for global warming, and they've gone home and eaten a steak. Well, they had very strong ideas of what they wanted in the world, but did they create the change? Were they creating the change that they wanted to create with their actions? No. When we understand that more global warming gases are coming out of the production of livestock than are coming out of all the forms of transportation combined, you see that there's a conflict there. They have some lofty ideas in one way, and in another way they're not really bringing those ideas to the fore because they're taking actions that don't support that kind of change in the world. Making changes like what we're doing today. Many people who are here today are changers, unlike most other people in the world in the area of diet. It's a very powerful and a very fun place to be, because when you choose a diet that's lower on the food chain, you are not just making a choice that has an impact because it's a beautiful thing and it shows that you support a cause, but the very choice creates a change in the world. Now, I think the world that we're living in, while it has a lot of beautiful advanced things and we're very lofty thinkers in some ways, I call it the bizarro world. And the bizarro world is the world where the choices that we make have nothing to do with the values that we hold. Let's look at it for a moment. A couple hundred years ago, it's hard to see when you're living in the world. I do talks for children all the time in schools, and I say, what's bizarre about this world? Nobody ever has an answer. And then I'll talk to them and I'll say, you know, they used to have slavery a couple of hundred years ago. And when you lived in slave times, it was just normal. It's a beautiful day and the slaves are working well today. And it's such a beautiful day. And that's just the way it was. Did they realize it was bizarre? Some people did. They were kind people, they were good people, but they had slaves. And as recently as, more recently, 100 years ago, women couldn't vote. Were they bizarre people? Were they mean, horrible people? Well, no, not all of them. Basically, they were kind, decent people like we aspire to be today. And yet they couldn't vote. So I asked my students, you know, what is it? What is it today? That's just as bizarre as slavery and just as bizarre as women not having the right to vote. Well, there are a lot of things. One of the things is that we kill 11 billion animals every year in the United States alone. And yet we value compassion and we have laws against hurting animals. When I see the pigeons in the park and I see the squirrels in the park, I don't get hungry. I look at them and I think, this is a joyous moment for me. And I think carnivore or vegetarian alike, or vegan, we all have that feeling. It's just something that's part of us, this desire to really be kind. And we also have laws to protect children. We think that we need to protect them, and yet, what do? It's legal to market junk foods to children. Yeah, you can go on TV and tell them that they want to eat a food that's going to cause cancer, heart disease, stroke, diabetes, osteoporosis, and a host of other maladies. That's legal. In a world where we value health and we take care of our families, most people are dying of preventable diseases. Millions of people every year. Diseases that are preventable in a society where we know a lot better. So it's my job to really look at the world, see what the bizarre things are, and start teaching people, opening up the lid, if you will. Letting them see. It's like the king's new clothes. Opening it up so everyone can see. And that's your job too, by the way. Because the very fact that you're here today means that you've understood something that most of the planet still does not understand. And that's how critical your food choices are, and eating lower on the food chain, eating not animals, but eating plants. What a profound difference that makes in the world. So you get that we have freedom. That's where you start. We have freedom, we can be anybody. And then you have to figure out what you want. And then you have to look at the implications of what you're doing. And then comes the fun. Now, how many people eat a vegan, vegetarian, plant-based diet? How many people here? All right. Let me see all of you, okay? How many of you here eat a vegan, vegetarian, plant-based diet? All right, how many out of those people think it's one of the best things you've ever done in your life? Yeah, everybody. Now, I would suggest that, number one, vegans and vegetarians aren't different. At one point, I was eating an entirely meat-based diet, like everyone else, and I just had no idea. Was I worse or was I meaner than I am today? No, I wasn't. I just had no idea. And so the people who are still eating, of course I was, I guess around 18 or so, and as soon as I learned it, something clicked, and then a couple of years later, all of a sudden, the change was made and it was for good. But not everybody has been exposed. They may have heard it, but they may not have heard it. And they may not understand that it's a decision that is applicable to their lives. So every one of us, as people who eat plant-based diets, our job is to keep exposing the bizarro world. And if you are eating a carnivorous diet, as most people on this planet are, well, not on this planet, but most people right in our city here and in the United States are doing, if you're doing that, I would like to tell you how I really think that you're just as perfect as everybody else. Now, what I do want to tell you is that there is such joy and pleasure and wholeness on the other side of a choice to move toward a plant-based diet, and I look forward to the day that you understand that, because one day most people will get that. And I also want to say to people who are eating a plant-based diet that I would no sooner judge a rose for not being fully open than I would to judge someone who doesn't fully understand the choices that they're making. Again, there was a time when I didn't know. Whose fault is it? It's nobody's fault, but it's the responsibility of the people who do know to really let everyone else know that this is possible and that it's such an enlivening, fun, joyous place to be in one's life. On that note, I thank you so much for listening, and I thank Pamela for being involved in creating this event where we all come together and share our wisdom with each other. Thank you so much, and be kind to everybody and everything.